In progress.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is Vanessa, your life beyond the military. And today we are on a Thursday, so we're talking about thoughtful Thursday things. Yes, I have Elise with me today. Hello, Elise. Elise, if you haven't read her little bio before, she is a retired logistics officer from the U.S. Air Force, also an author. Hello, we're going to be talking about her book today, and a veteran advocate. So yes, I have my copy. She has hers. Thank you. So she is helping nonprofits and their boards achieve their mission through business, not battle. And I like to help military spouses transform their lives and all that from battlefield to blissful retirement. So we both are using that word battle. We want to get out of battle. We want things to be more with ease of flow, effectiveness, communication, all that. So I was really glad that Elise could jump on here with us today. And so she mentioned before too that there are no stupid questions. So we're going to dive into that, and we're going to talk about the what to ask and thoughtfully when to ask and how to ask. So without further ado, Elise, thank you for joining the platform today. And yeah, let's just jump in on it. I was just looking through your book again and just your background, because I'm like, who just starts writing a book about nonprofits? Like, where does that come from? But then I saw.
Well, I do, of course.
You do.
It goes right from logistics to that.
Yeah, and you went to
No.
Virginia Military Institute, and I was just down the road from you at William and Mary, so we both went to school in Virginia. And yeah, your tagline, I think, is also ignite, inspire, and grow. And it sounds like you had like a trial by fire experience by getting called onto a nonprofit board. And then you're thinking, oh my gosh, anxiety, lack of confidence. What am I doing here? Am I the right person? So you have put all of the nuggets in this book for people so that they don't have to go through all the heartache that you went through, which I love. And I think it also applies to just anybody in the workplace. Like, I feel like there's a lot of tools in there for just effective communication. I know in my master's, it was like organizational psychology and those kinds of courses. So, so yeah, we're going to dive in. So please introduce yourself and let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it. So we do have a lot in common. And I think that's one of the great things about networking, is that we wouldn't have met each other if it weren't for this online community that we have in Freedom Makers Virtual Services in their forum. And I think that's just a great opportunity for veteran and military spouse, elite athlete entrepreneurs, and really anyone who's supportive of that community to come together and meet and grow. And even though we have so many things in common, without that ability to connect, I don't know that we would have had the chance to grow our relationship. And so I'm thankful for that. Absolutely. And I'm also excited to be here today to talk about thoughtful questions, because they're really the #1 tool in helping move any situation from a battle sort of stance, from that stress, that anxiety, that heartache, that anywhere that you feel resistance. Those are the types of things that I call battle in these situations. And by asking these thoughtful questions and using this tool that we're going to talk about today, it can really move those situations into something business. And when I say business, it is more mission focused. These are mission focused relationships. I'd like to say that it is a mutually beneficial exchange of services, products, or ideas. So in that way, business. But the business, not battle mindset for everyone, like you mentioned. And it can be used in so many different ways. I know that I'm not talking today just to nonprofits, and so I'm going to talk about your relationship with a team and how you can ask a team thoughtful questions. That can be your coworkers, that can be your board, or the staff that you work with.
Can it be your spouse?
It can be. And it also can be your family, absolutely. Your spouse, your children. I'm actually right now at a homeschool conference where we're doing a book swap. And as I was looking through some of the books, I was thinking about all the thoughtful questions that we encounter throughout our lives. And I'm so excited to talk with you guys today about them.
And mother of 5, you know your communication skills too. I'm sure trying to corral.
They are tested. It is definitely worse than anything I ever faced at VMI.
or in the military.
It really is. Well, I did have quite a few airmen. So one of the things that is important for us to understand as we move into our conversation today is that questions have really taken on kind of a negative connotation. So we think that as we're asking questions, it might show that we're weak, that we don't know everything, maybe that we feel like we should know. But I want to invite you all to let go of that assumption and any of those reservations that you have around questions, because they're really the foundation of building relationship and having good communication. And like you said, there are no stupid questions, but there are poorly worded, incorrectly timed, self-serving, and destructive questions. And I want you guys to be aware of those. So think about if you make a mistake or something and someone comes up to you and says, "Why would you do it that way?"
That's right? How we talk in the military a lot, right? I mean, I'm in a Marine Corps environment.
What were you thinking?
Yeah.
What were you thinking? Okay? Those are not thoughtful questions. That's not what we're going for here. And so I want you guys to be aware of those, or why didn't you do it this way? These are questions that only serve to make you look smarter or make you look more important or degrade the other person that you're asking them to. And that's not where mutually beneficial relationships come from. So what that leads to the next thing. What is a thoughtful question? Well, there are three things that I want you guys to think about as you're asking questions. One is they should be open-ended, meaning there's not a yes or a no question. That leads right to the second thing, which is it's going to make people stop and think. You're going to make them think about what you're trying to talk about, what the conversation is, what the battle is really about, even if that's not the way that they're thinking about it yet. And then the third thing is that they serve to deepen understanding. And we'll talk a little bit more about the language and the how to ask later, but it's not, "Why did you do it that way?" I promise.
I like the head roll too thing, like, do the kids?
Yeah, I've asked that question a time or two. Yeah.
This is great for for middle school and high schoolers. Like, that's where I kind of learned, and I did a lot of focus of the family. I had all kinds of Christian phone apps to help guide me. You've got the homeschool environment, so you get all kinds of extra resources, and you're living in the now with all those moms raising those kids. But yeah, this is so applicable to just with your kids to start having those engaging conversations around a dinner table too, without the yes and no answer, which is how. I can't say all, but many teenagers will just answer yes or no. And I guess in the workplace too, if people don't have the opportunity to express more, it's just yes, no. So. And
the bonus quality, I guess, of a thoughtful question would be that you're not trying to include the answer you want to hear. So have you thought about doing it this way? That is a yes or no question. Well, no, I didn't think about doing it that way. But it also suggests that you are smarter and is going to shut the other team member down. So let's dive into what to ask, when to ask, and how to ask, because that's what we're here to talk about. And I'm going to start with a story. When I was working with one of the committees that had I was with a local organization, and it was a very old organization, had history, decades and decades of history, but it had kind of dwindled. There wasn't a lot of engagement. People weren't sinking their teeth into it like they should have. And the board chair, as any good chair would do, said, "Let's start with a mission. Let's get a mission together." And so we collected the people that were interested enough to show up to the meetings, and we said, let's come up with a new mission. And we're talking and going through, and one of the more historical people that had been with the organization for a long time started to just ramble on about the history, about, well, so-and-so said this then, and this happened, and that happened, and
we're the drama. All about the drama.
the 1 hour meeting was going nowhere fast. And it was making everybody tense. Like we were all starting to feel like, oh dear, here we go again. We're trying to move forward. And so, I thought this is a great opportunity to try a thoughtful question. And I said, it's really good that you have all this history and all this knowledge. What do you think the mission should be moving forward? And she was silent for a little while. And one of the things with thoughtful questions, you have to be comfortable with that. It's okay. You've asked a question that makes someone stop and think, well, what should it be? And after a little bit of time, she came out with some wording that went on to be the foundation of the mission that we used to reignite that committee. But without that thoughtful question, we would have all just gone down the rabbit hole of, trying to justify and defend or give testimony to one side or another, and we would have gotten nowhere. But with that tool of the thoughtful question, the what to ask, we would have been stuck. And so when you get into those situations, try to take a step back and look at what you're trying to accomplish. In that particular meeting, we were working on a mission statement. So let's focus on the mission statement. If you are struggling to teach a subject, as that's something I run into frequently, it's not so much about the material, but what we're trying to learn. So asking, what are we trying to learn? And moving backwards from there can sometimes help break loose the block, the stress, the tension, and help refocus, in this case, my children, on what it is we're actually trying to do. And so I encourage you to look at those situations, figure out what your goal is, and ask questions that are going to move the conversation or the situation closer to that goal.
Mm. So what I hear you saying also is like you have to kind of take a step back, kind of get out of yourself, get out of your head. So maybe you're like the third party looking in and saying, okay, what is the bigger picture here? Because sometimes we can just be wrapped in our thought and our mission in our head and just a whole different path going down a rabbit hole, but that's not really the collective mission. So taking a step back, breather, like take a step back and just kind of let it sink in that silence. You mentioned that space of silence and someone not being able to answer straight away. There's so many gifts in coaching. We learn that, there's still a lot of activity going on in the mind in silence. So sit in that silence and create that space.
And earlier in the book, we talk about knowing yourself and your skills and your strengths. And from that comes a lot of confidence and being able to ask these questions and being able to step back from yourself. But it is really important to be aware of those things. So next we want to talk about when to ask. There, again, are no stupid questions, but there are poorly timed questions. So some questions you want to ask right away. In the case of that committee meeting, letting that go on any longer would have not been good for anyone. If you're not able to follow something that someone is reporting to you, ask a question right away that's going to clear up any confusion. Because if you have a question about it, I guarantee someone else in the room has the same or similar question. So you can be that example of asking those questions right away. Don't wait. Other questions you want to wait to ask. There are questions, so more of the self-serving questions that are going to say, well, have we thought about doing it this way? And if that's the purpose of the meeting, brainstorming, go ahead and ask. But a lot of times those questions can derail a conversation and put you down a different track where you get off on the wrong exit and you end up not being at your final destination at the end of the conversation or the meeting. So it's okay to wait. Then there are the questions that we don't ask, that maybe we sit in confusion or misunderstanding. And those are the questions you want to be on the lookout for, that you want to ask. If it's not the right time, write them down and ask them later. If you're not sure of what time that's going to be, maybe it's an email or a text or a, hey, can we talk about this a little bit more? Anything that's going to deepen those understandings. And a lot of times you can have really good conversations about something when it's outside of a meeting space, when it's in a different environment, where as just bringing something up, a great idea during a meeting is going to just sit there on the table and not do anything. But if it is really a good idea, it might gain more traction if you have a earlier conversation about it outside of those kind of spaces.
Mm-hmm.
There's also being able to read the emotions of other people. And you run, I know you see this with teenagers, and that might not be the right time. It's just not the right time to ask how your day was. And maybe you just say, I'm here when you're ready to talk, or, reassuring them that you're there, those kinds of things.
Yeah, the body language gives off a much higher percentage of, reading somebody than the verbal words they're even putting out. So we learned that in, coaching training too. And I see it with my clients too. If they're starting to like glaze over, because we've been talking about some business stuff and moving their business forward, and it's just like a lot of information at once. And, when you see that glaze, they're like, okay, let's just take a pause and digest what we've done now. Cause it's no use if we just kind of keep talking like to a wall pretty much, because they've now left the conversation. They're gone. So
right. And that leads right into the last part of this, is how to ask. How do we ask? It's again important to understand your styles and the way that you're comfortable communicating, but it's also important to understand your team member, who you're trying to communicate with and who you're trying to ask. So are they more sensitive and going to need more space or time to think about this? Or are they just ready for debate and discussion? Like my husband, he is always ready for a good debate or discussion. And I have to be really careful about the questions that I ask him, because sometimes I'll bring up a topic and it will turn into a big discussion where I was just mentioning something offhand. So I've kind of learned his style, and you need to know that, especially about your close teammates, like your family.
Yeah. Well, that brings a point too in the workplace. I mean, that's where those personality tests are too. Like, you might think someone's learning style or whatever, but there's free assessment tests you can take out there so that everybody kind of knows if they're more introspective, extrospective, anything to do to help. So building a team, it'd be good for people to have.
And those are great opportunities for team building. And know your color, or what's your bank code, or there are so many of the different personality or communication type tests that really create a great foundation for discussion in a team. You want to use soft language with a thoughtful question. And again, that's going to avoid those "what were you thinkings," and you're going to try to avoid offense with your words. So instead of "what were you thinking," can you explain, or please explain why you made this decision? Or how did you arrive at this choice? What were you?
Tone as well, right? Tone.
Right.
I mean, when you said soft, I'm thinking of like literally like, music crescendo and stuff, soft tone, very controlled versus a little more aggressive and higher pitch. But maybe you mean something else by soft. So just explain.
Well, just the avoiding offense. So you're trying to be really smooth in the way that you are asking and not abrasive. Like, you're not trying to show off or be self-serving or be derogatory towards someone by asking this question.
And if that says, poke the bear.
Exactly. You don't want to poke the bear. So try not to. A great tool, a great way to use a thoughtful question is in networking. I found it to be one of the most amazing ways to start a relationship where you listen to what someone is saying and then ask them to go deeper into, the van life is really interesting, Vanessa. What led you to start that journey? And that story is amazing. And if anyone listening to this doesn't know that story, I encourage a one-on-one with Vanessa because it is amazing.
Yes. Or go to my
But those
homepage
are
of my website and watch the 1 hour podcast. I'm repeating it a lot now. But it is fun. It is fun.
Yeah, and those are the questions that build relationship. If you do find something that you're not agreeing on with someone, assume that you're not understanding them correctly. Again, this is stepping away from yourself a little bit, knowing yourself, and then being able to ask for clarification, ask for it to be clear. And then maybe you don't want to ask questions in public versus private. Is it a question that you want to ask in a meeting, or is it going to make that person uncomfortable? And maybe you need to ask it when you're not around other people. And they might be more comfortable actually telling you the truth. As a closer, I've got 2 exercises that you guys can try to develop your thoughtful questions and your ability to ask them to sharpen that tool. One is the 5 whys. You take a problem in your life and you ask why at it. And you answer the question why 5 times. And until you get to what is essentially the root cause or what is causing that problem. And from that problem, you start to seek solution. So there's the 5 whys. And then there's also try to make your own thoughtful questions and use them in your daily life. I know I catch myself a lot asking the yes or no's and have to think about how to rephrase that so that it can open people's imaginations. It can open them to innovation and change, and it can open them to a mindset that is really mission focused, more on business and less on battle.
My goodness. I love it. You've done your homework, your research, and it's all in there in this book. And I've worked for a charity before, so I know the side on being on the charity side, not the board side, but I volunteered at, military charities and an anti-human trafficking charity. And I did 2 years of event management and then 2 years of grants. So yeah, when you work behind the scenes of a charity, it's a business. And it was interesting to see how the boards, like you said, it's only as effective as the leadership that's running it. And if you're not in alignment with the mission, you're kind of off track already with, what you're fundraising for. And so, so many good nuggets in this book. And then, you mentioned, I like that page on page 33 with the visual here on effective board members. So they're having good communication skills, well-developed critical thinking skills, mission-focused mindset, connection to the organization method or mission, integrity, willingness to engage, and will activate their connections. So activate their connections. Does that mean like networking?
Mainly. So later in the book, we talk about being an advocate. And really that's what every nonprofit needs in one way or another, especially out of their board members. They need advocates that are going to spread the mission, wear the name tag, wave the flag, and bring people into supporting their mission. And so that's willing to activate your network is kind of foreshadowing the advocacy part of the book.
Oh, does that mean there's a part 2 coming out?
Oh, there's a whole encyclopedia of these in my head.
Okay, I'm not the only one. Okay, good. I'm still working on the first one. So one question I was thinking that popped up was, what about when people take things personally too? Like it's their own interpretation. Someone might be just very forthright and, getting their point across, and you're now taking it personally. You're not even thinking about, just the mission and the bigger picture. You're just kind of feeling hurt and bent out of shape. So that, we talked about not being that person to the other person, but what about the person who's receiving it, feeling that way? What do you have to say to help them kind of get over that hump with the question and moving forward so they don't stay stuck or kind of sever a relationship? And I'll add too, just in this generation, it seems like there is not a lot of dialogue that goes on. Your book is kind of timely. It's like if you don't have the same opinion of someone, like you can be ghosted. You're
Mhm.
just unfriended. Like, that's it. They
Yeah.
leave the group and it's like, what happened? Can we just talk about it? But there's like no
Yeah.
room for that.
That
Things are
that's
off. Like,
where I think it's important to assume misunderstanding. So assume that they didn't understand you. And if there's still opportunity to reach out and try to clarify, you know, and call it out and say, I think I might not have been very clear. You can take that responsibility onto yourself, and that a lot of times will disarm the other person. If you say, you misunderstood me, nope,
right.
the wall goes up. But if you say, I wasn't clear enough in the way that I asked that question, or I didn't word what I wanted to say well, will you give me another chance? Can we try again?
Yeah.
Those types of things can be very disarming. In the example I used, I called attention and praised the knowledge and the history and the intelligence that the lady had in talking about the history of the organization. That's really good information to have. But right now we're focused, and I refocused her on the mission, which is what we were trying to do and move forward. So without saying like, I'm tired of hearing the history, I'm tired of digging that up, let's put that away already, bury the hatchet, let's move away from that. She would have put her guard up, right? All of us would have. But to say, it's really good that you have this information. How could we change that history moving forward so that it becomes an engaging group to be a part of?
Yeah.
Whoa, I actually want to think about that because I'm here. I've showed up. I care. Yeah, I want to have a good opinion, but I'm stuck. See, these thoughtful questions can pull people out of their own battles, and help them move forward too. So you just, I really try to take it easy on people. Assume that they're stressed. Assume that they're busy. Assume that you haven't communicated well enough with them, and take it easy on them.
And
I think we could all be a little nicer to each other.
Yeah, and nobody's perfect, so it's okay. I think there's value in saying, I'm sorry, I messed up. Like I got a little out of hand, or I was, I didn't use my words right, and I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? Like, it's okay to say that too. People don't like to say they're sorry because it feels like it's a weakening thing, but it's actually, I feel like it's a strength if you can own your fault and say, I'm sorry, I messed up this time. Do it again, like you mentioned again. So. Okay. Yes. Wow. That was so insightful. I'm going to be recording this, and this might become like my nighttime TV screen rewatch. If I can get my husband, I want to put this on the TV screen, give a break from the fishing and hunting shows, So, we have Diana Marquez who say, good morning, lady. She's coming in from the West Coast.
Hi, Diana.
Thanks for joining us. So to close, how can people, we got a couple minutes left, how can people reach you? And please tell us again about your book. Maybe we can put like a link in the show notes too
absolutely. The book is Business Not Battle for Nonprofit Boards. That's just this version. You can replace the nonprofit board aspect of this book with any organization or team and use the same fundamental principles in it to ignite effectiveness and impact in your team, in your organization. It's available on Amazon. The Audible version is on Audible. You can also buy it through my website. And if you want to buy it for a group, I offer a board discount for an organization. I love to talk to people about this, obviously. Spread the news that you can be in business, not battle. So I offer Ignite presentations. I do board retreats where we work a little bit deeper into some of the fundamental aspects of what this business, not battle is, and how that can help with strategic planning and sort of the business fundamental sides of things. And I love to work with nonprofits. I think there's always something to learn because each one is so different. So if there are any of you out there today that have not had the opportunity to connect, I really welcome that chance to learn about your organization and see how what I learned from you might be able to help others. My website is betterwithwe.com. That's better with Woodworth Enterprises, or we're better together. Betterwithwe.com.
Like W-E, we.
W-E.
Because we get those long names. It's like, we got to shorten it up here. So better with we. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And to reach myself, you can go to resetwithvanessa.com. And I am also doing VA disability audits now. I don't know if I think I mentioned to Elise in our Freedom Makers, but anybody stuck in the VA claim, I am an affiliate for a third party contractor who helps push those forward. And we look at the disability rating and see if there's any way to increase that compensation that they're deserving of for service-connected disabilities. So yeah, reach out to me for that at Vanessa or resetwithvanessa.com if you want information on that. And thank you again so much for joining, Elise. And I will be seeing you in Freedom Makers. Maybe we can put Freedom Makers in the notes too, because that's a great military networking organization that people should come and check out. And it's complimentary. I know there's a lot of networking groups, and the first question is, how much does it cost? So as of now, I don't know. Maybe it's a pilot thing. Maybe down the road it becomes paid. Like everything else, they get you hooked, and then it's like, oh no, we gotta pay. But no,
I don't think there are plans for that. I think we're a self-run little oddity, I guess, of cohort. Yeah. But it's always great to meet new people. So, like I always say, I usually wrap things up by saying to remember that you're in business, not battle, and to ignite, inspire, grow wherever you go.
And I'll end with recharge your life, charge your soul, not just your cell phone, and hence the van life, getting ready to go off to Canada and Alaska. So time to get out there and charge our soul and get unplugged in nature a little bit too. So that's important. Give a little time away when businesses and nonprofit work can be so draining, like so much burnout, right? But that's a whole other book, just the burnout of being with nonprofit. So one tip from Vanessa, get out into nature to like decompress and slow down so that you can, let your thoughts catch up to you in a busy, hectic world. So, so thank you all for joining. And thank you, Diana, for chiming in. The comments, go ahead and leave them in there after this goes into a replay. And we're happy to continue the conversation. So we will see you all around, and keep it a thoughtful Thursday. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone.